for supply reasons, for construction reasons, and so forth. Some of those are in the food services fund, and Mr. Taylor had a big project at the high school, remodeling the food service line. And that was a pretty big project, but we couldn't get it closed out by the end of June 30th. So you'll see some carryover requests that I'll take to the governing board there of $256,000. That amount of money, we do not need extra revenue for. The fund balance from the food services will absorb that. In the general fund, however, it's a little different story. The phone system, we have emergency radios, washer dryer replacement at the athletic department. Last year, we had intended to replace the outdoor air units on the high school, but we weren't able to get that done by June 30th, and we had to match funds with a state grant for air handler repair or replacement. And that matching amount was about $600,000. The governing body last year asked me to go back and look at our budget and see what we would have left over at the end of the year. So this is just me going back to the governing body, asking for those funds from this unexpended fund balance. The bleachers at the high school were replaced, but couldn't get them finished by June 30th. And the remaining balance on the high school roofing project this year was $240,000 that we had to carry over. And those are punch list items that just weren't done by June 30th. And we obviously don't give final payment until everything is done. And then there were some heat pump replacements. So that comes to a total of $1 million. And that closes out that presentation. Any questions before I move on to the next? I guess I should wait.
Questions from the board? Okay, no. Yep, we're good.
Want me to keep rolling?
Yep, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. The next presentation. Where'd it go?
I think he exited out, so you might have
okay.
to go back to the board docs, the second tab.
Oh, it's on. All right, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm trying to help from afar.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
All right, I think I got it. We're good.
Top right, 3 buttons, present.
All right, good deal. Okay, so I bring back our carryover request. This next presentation is my FY23 budget amendment. And again, you'll see this slide. We just finished looking at it. I start out this presentation just reminding everyone those are the carryover requests that I'm including in this budget amendment. So looking at our FY23 budget, school stabilization line item, which was a new thing this year that the governing body approved. I'm presenting in this budget amendment to include the carryover items for $1,065,000 and the cost of the mold remediation services, which was an emergency repair to the middle school for the health and welfare of our staff and students, for a total cost of almost $1.2 million out of that projected fund balance, which would leave around $138,000 to transfer to the school stabilization line item going forward.
Was the mold insurance claim did anything come of that?
They're still deliberating on it, and
I know it's probably a long shot, but
I mean, if it's taking this long to decide, it
Yeah.
may not look good.
we tried begging. Crying.
Want their
We'll
phone
do
number so you
whatever
can
it-
call
Hey,
them?
I'm not been,
Yeah, they're taking it to their upper level management to review.
thank you.
You bet. FY23 budget expenditures that I'm asking to add to our previously approved budget. The first 4 line items there are the line items we just went over at the carryover. Great news, we've received some additional grants. Ann Shaw, well, I'll get to Ann Shaw. Claude Moore grant of $100,000 for the CTE nursing program. Gear Up, $27,000. Health Workforce Grant expenses, which gave money for the nursing bonuses that we had, and some additional funds for some scholarships for them to increase their licensure. And then Ann Shaw just got a vaccine grant for $30,000 to provide a vaccine clinic for our students so they can get their school vaccinations, their whatever, MMRs and all those things that they need. And that would add up to about $1.6 million in expenditures to add to our budget. And then from our state and federal side, this is the other half of that air handler grant. This is the state share that matches our $600,000 to replace the air handling units at the high school. And then ESSER 2, we're adding $293,577 in expenditures, and I have those broken out in some future slides, upcoming slides. ESSER 3, about 1.2, and then ARP, IDA, ARP, that's the Students with Disabilities COVID money, about 52,000 for a total of 2.1 million in additional expenditures. The reason these ESSER 2, 3, and the ARP were not included in the original budget is because we still had line items that we were trying to expend there. So if you remember when I proposed the FY23 budget initially, I mentioned that I'll be coming back once we close out this year to adjust these numbers. And these are those adjustments. Looking at the revenue side from the federal level, the state level, these are the same numbers, just add up to those expenses from those sources. Breaking out the ESSER 2 expenditures, these are those line items, add up to that 293,000. One thing I'd like to point out here is the bonuses for staff, which we mentioned a few meetings ago. I do intend for that to come out in December to the employees. We should receive the funds from the state, they're telling me by December 1st, I believe. But this 200,000 is the money we need so we can provide $1,000 bonuses to all of our employees, not just to SOQ positions. ESSER 3, these are the line items for ESSER 3 expenditures, add up to almost about 1.2 million. And this is the IDEA 611
Pass-through.
materials. And again, the other grants from the revenue side. So looking all together now at the approved FY23 budget, the proposed amount, and the amendment totals. So looking at the revenue, you can see the differences there. Add up to about $3.5 million more in revenue to bring the revenue around 57.8 million, or almost 57.9. Expenditures adding 3.7 million in expenditures to 57.6. Now you'll see there in the proposed additional amount. Well, Dave, you're only proposing 3.5 more in revenue, but you're saying 3.7 more in expenditures. That's kind of upside down. The difference there is that food service, because I'm not asking for any additional revenue. I'm taking it out of their fund balance. And the revenue is higher than expenditures, but again, not all the revenue comes in. This is a projected revenue amount, and so it's always, I'd like to have a little cushion there. And that concludes the FY23 budget amendment.
Perfect. Any questions from the board? No. Okay. Is this, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. So this is in line with the method that the governing body wants in regards to budget amendments and updates on our budget from year to year. And
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is only my second year working with the governing body, but yes, what I learned last year and working with the city manager and his staff, we met with him and his staff and reviewed this presentation.
Okay.
And they seem to meet their needs. So I anticipate this will be the information that they'll be asking for.
Okay.
And with the new line item.
Is it, oh, perfect. And this is, are you going to be presenting to the whole governing body?
Yes, November 15th,
November 15th.
Tuesday.
Yeah. If you can just send a reminder, I might want to pop down if I can. I know it's the same week of VSBA, but give it a shot.
Yeah, great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for all of your work and the transparency in the budget. I know it's deeply appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
All right. Moving on to the proposed fiscal year 23 through 28 capital improvement plan. I'm starting to feel old, Stamp, here reading these numbers.
It catches up, doesn't it?
It does.
There you go.
Mr. Neff, always good to see you.
Good evening. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm pleased to share the capital improvement plan presentation with you tonight. As a refresh for each CIP project, there's certain requirements that they must meet. An item must have a useful life of greater than 1 year. Project purchases result in addition of a fixed asset or extends the useful life of an asset. And it must, individual assets rather than a group of assets must be more of a value of more than $1,000. So this CIP serves as a fluid roadmap to navigate major projects throughout the school year. The one thing you will see in this one is, in the past, it's always been a 5-year plan, including the current fiscal year. When I present it to the city, they've always wanted a 5-year plan that does not include the current fiscal year. So I've kind of merged it together. So I'll also include this year, but also 24 through 28 in this plan as well. Also, as you're aware, we're about to enter into a new 5-year strategic plan. Ms. Kelso, I know, is addressing that issue, and that will guide a lot of our future projects. And some of those examples that we may see in those plans include expansion of our CTE programs, partnerships with the city. For instance, what you won't see in this plan tonight is like a new maintenance facility or a new transportation facility. Those are conversations we're starting to have with the city regarding a shared space. So in the past, I've included that as a kind of a wish. That's not included in this project because we're having those conversations and it may be taken off of our need moving forward. So basically what I'm telling you is we're going to have to be a little flexible, that this is going to be ever changing throughout the next 5 years. This plan does match up with strategic goal number 3 to provide effective and efficient support for our student safety and their successes. Before we really get started and look ahead, I wanted to kind of look back and update you on some of the projects from FY22. Some of these projects weren't initially in the budget because they included emergency repairs. Some of them, like the upgrade of the phone system, which we had extended over a period of 3 years. We went ahead and completed that entire project because we had the funding to do so last year with the new phones coming into the central office and into the buildings. Additional projects included the gator for the maintenance department, which was originally in the FY21 budget, but because of supply chain issues, we were unable to take ownership of that until after the FY21 year ended. Replacement parts, emergency replacement parts for the elementary school playground, the bleachers, which Mr. Lyon just talked about, which we initially began the process early last year, but the project did not get completed until this summer. And the handrails, you may have noticed at the high school when you've been there recently, years ago they were taken out because of a concern about the use of them by skateboarders in the evenings and the weekends. So it was kind of taken out for a safety reason. Soon to be realized recently that we weren't meeting Virginia code, so we had to put those back into play.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I was thinking skateboarders to myself before you said it.
So 2 examples of projects that include the outdoor air units and the bus replacements are projects that we have faced supply chain orders. An example that I put before you tonight is the bus replacements. We ordered those last January, 2 buses to be replaced with the assurance that they would be in June. Well, that got pushed to August and has been pushed to December of this year. So we are still waiting on those 2 bus replacements. So certainly we want to do that this year, and we want to move forward with additional ones this coming year. This slide provides a comparison of the projects from FY22 and FY23. I will go through the FY23 projects moving forward. And then this slide provides you a look at the list of projects from FY23 through FY28, and I'll go into more detail on each of them. So beginning with the projects for FY23, this is a project that's been in the plan for a number of years, replacing the individual units at Cougar and at MPE. Those are the units with the R22 refrigerant, which is so hard to come by now, and if you can find it, it's very expensive. So we've gone away from that, and we're replacing those individual classroom units with another unit that uses a different type of refrigerant. One of the nice things about this is the staff from ABM has been building individual closets around those units, which helps to keep the noise down within the classroom. And I think our teachers are really appreciative of that. The second FY23 project is the resurfacing of the secondary lot campus. It's really in bad shape. I was walking through there today. There's a lot of places where someone could really twist an ankle if they're not watching where they're walking. A lot of potholes in that have been patched and repaired, but they are giving way. To their best of knowledge, the last time this was done was in 2006. So this is a project that is high on the priority list for FY23. Another project that we've kind of pushed down the road is the lockers in the boys' high school locker room. As you can see, they are the more taller standalone type of lockers as compared to what we have offered in our women's locker room, which provides more lockers so that students don't have to share those lockers. And those are lockers not only used for athletic teams, but they're also used during the PE classes. The fencing project is a project that I'm happy to say has been completed already this year. They're fenced around the wooded area of Cougar Elementary School. It provides a safety measure for students when they're on the playground. We do have some runners that like to get loose, and fortunately, we can shut the gates. Now, those gates are not locked. They're not. It wasn't done to dissuade the community from using our playgrounds, because we know our community uses our playgrounds quite a bit after hours. I will tell you, however, unfortunately, we've had quite a bit of damage to our gates since we put the fence up, and that's only been in a month or so.
Wow.
Do we have cameras on?
Not out back. That's going to be a part of our safety plan for next year, and the grant that Dr. Grosser and the principals get together to write.
Very good, thank you.
I'm happy to report that an RFP has been written, and it was put out last month. We have selected a vendor to do the outdoor air unit projects at the high school for a cost of $1,102,000. Of course, these outdoor air units condition 100% outdoor air, improving the air quality indoors, and it controls the relative humidity, reducing the load on the HVAC equipment. The gym curtain at the high school, you notice here's a picture of the middle school gym curtain. You can see the apex in the middle. The gym curtain at the high school isn't designed that way, which provides a little bit of an issue for our volleyball teams, sometimes for basketball as well. But the real issue with the high school gym curtain is something that came to our attention when we replaced the bleachers. It's a three-part system, so you have the middle section that comes down across the floor to divide the gym. The other end sections roll down independently. Well, with the new bleachers, they don't roll down all the way any longer. So it's kind of an unforeseen consequence of putting the new bleachers in. We want to go to a new curtain format, just like the one here at the middle school with the apex in the middle. We're going to continue to request the replacement of buses, 2 to 3 a year. Fortunately, the city isn't very big, so we don't put a lot of miles on our buses. I know there has been some questions and thoughts about electric school buses moving forward. I was just actually reading an article today that was shared with me about the cost of electric buses. There are certainly a lot of grants out there as well. The biggest issue is with the charging stations and the utility work that needs to be done. And so if we are considering moving to a shared facility with the city, it might be of value to kind of wait to look at doing something like that in that new facility. But again, that's a conversation I believe we're going to have with joint boards maybe in January of this year.
Is there any way to get any revenue with the old buses? So like once we get the new ones, what happens to the old ones? Can we potentially sell them to other transportation companies or parts?
We have done that before. Okay. I don't know the value of what they were worth when we've done that.
Value's probably gone up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I'm just
Oh yeah, value's gone up, no doubt. Used automobiles, right?
That's what I was thinking. That's why I asked.
The replacement of the middle school stage curtain recently came to our attention that we're having some issues with the pulley system that moves the curtains from closed to open. We did have an accident a few years ago where the curtains actually fell. Ooh. Fortunately, no one was hurt in that incident, but it was a real concern. Mr. Simpson recently inspected the curtains. He made some adjustments to them. They've sent out some direction that adults are only the ones to use the pulley system, But this is a project that we want to move forward with during this school year. And it's used quite a bit in the auditorium between all schools in our school division. This is a project we've talked about a lot also. It becomes a little bit of a safety concern, lack of Wi-Fi and cellular service over on the elementary campus. I think Mr. McCormick mentioned it earlier, that we were.
Yeah, you're a slide behind.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
still in the theater.
Wait a minute, it was on my screen.
Oh,
It's not advancing.
Maybe just give it a minute. I don't know. Just
Give
needs
that a
time
minute.
to adjust.
Not a minute.
Matt. Matt. I actually had a question about that while we were on it anyway.
Okay.
So being it's a safety one, and I mean, it's expensive, but were we comfortable pushing it out one more year? Because I know this came up discussions last year.
The stage curtain?
No, the Wi-Fi,
Oh,
the cellular boost to the elementary campus.
I know that's something that Dr. Saunders has high on her priority list. We've talked about it a number of times. Staff not being able to use their personal devices.
Yes, exactly.
It also becomes a little bit of an instructional issue as well over there on the campus with all the Chromebooks and everything. So it's something that we can certainly consider moving up into this year.
And I will just add that the board will, the city manager is going to be presenting some information to the board. He has been asked by the governing body to do an assessment of the school security features, the buildings, some other types of things, including communications and those types of things for crisis management. And Dr. Grosser, the principals, Mr. Neff, all of us have been working with Mr. Palco they looked at all of the different schools, and we have a company that has come back with a proposal. So in the near future, the governing body will hear a presentation as well as the school board regarding this. This is a piece of it. Having a better communication system at that elementary campus, because it does not just cause some concern for us as school, at the school level, but also our city services and as they are utilizing that in the event of an emergency as well.
This survey is it to the ends of possibly additional funding or prioritizing the CIP or all of the above?
I believe that the city is looking at additional funding and redirecting some funds that they may have to provide a more secure environment for the schools, looking at things like our bulletproof glass, looking at windows, doors, the vestibule.
I noticed it wasn't in here. That was my one question.
Yeah, so there's a lot of conversation around those security upgrades, and certainly we're in the preliminary conversation process right now, and more information to come. But some of these pieces that are in the CIP may be addressed through other ways and other measures. There's quite a few grants out there, quite a few pieces of information and ways in which we can consider taking a chunk of these off. So to Mr. Neff's point, this will be a flexible document, and as we continue to work with our city partners, I think some of these things may be able to be addressed.
It's deeply gratifying to see the city and the schools working on this together. You know, it's been on our wish list for many, many years, so, yeah.
They've been incredible partners.
Fantastic. That's so good to hear. Come a long way.
The middle school roof project, this is something that we actually have moved up from FY25 to FY24. I know that there were some questions regarding the mold issue at the middle school. In talking with Mr. Simpson today, he can't find anyone that will say it's any one thing. I think I reported to you that we had 9 leaks repaired, or maybe Ms. Silverling, I reported to you 9 leaks repaired a few weeks ago on that middle school roof. We had 2 additional ones that were repaired on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So is it a combination of that, the cleaning of the air handlers and the units in the classrooms, the high reach areas, and do we look at maybe putting some type of some lighting in there that kind of absorbs those materials? It may be something that we need to look at to add to each classroom. More inspections, a more regular schedule of inspections for the middle school, but no one person. Also, the outdoor air units were inspected, and they seem to be in pretty good shape, and I'll mention that here in a few minutes, but that is, there's no one particular area that anybody can point to say this is the reason why we had the issues that we had.
Just the perfect storm.
Yes. The high school chiller, we replaced the tower there a few years ago, but the chiller itself is approaching the end of the life. It is the original unit from 2004 that was added when the extension was put on. So that is something that is on our radar for FY24. Replacement of the choral risers. These risers are used not only by our chorus department, but theater arts as well. They've just kind of, they've been adjusted and adjusted over the time, but they kind of, with their bolts and the tightening of them, there's a little concern about the safety of them. So we put this on the project. That's something Mrs. Tuttle and Mrs. Bircher at the middle school have requested.
I saw they were purchased in 2015. I don't, like, what's the average lifespan of them? I was just curious if that's also meaning the end, or maybe a different company.
I think wear and tear over
Wear and
the
tear,
years
okay.
more so than anything.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you the actual expected wear and tear or useful life.
Sorry.
Getting near the end. The middle school outdoor air units, like I said, we did have an inspector come in. He looked at them and thought that we could get another 2 years out of them. That is something that we had in the project with the high school and the middle school. Mr. Simpson recommended the high school be completed first. They were in more of a need than the middle school. Carpeting throughout the school division. Mr. Simpson's going to work with the building principals, but wear and tear, stains, just a lot of the carpeting's approaching the end of life. So Mr. Simpson will work with the principals to address where the most pressing matters are to begin some of the carpet replacements throughout. This is a project that has an asterisk on it also. As Dr. Saunders mentioned, the work that the city's doing with the safety and coordination with the schools may include universal PA systems for each of our schools. I've included this for the elementary schools, but it's a project that may be taken out in the future. So I've included this one for FY25 and the other one for FY26, and you have it on your screen.
Yeah.
So if it's
Yeah.
okay, I'll just keep rolling.
Yeah.
And I have it on my screen too, but it's not projecting. So. The high school fitness center was last upgraded in 2017. This is a heavy use area, not only by athletic teams, but certainly by our PE classes on a regular basis. The last time was a replacement of parts throughout the fitness center. Here it's going to be more of the actual equipment itself. It's just kind of in getting in bad shape. The secondary PA system, asterisk again beside that, as I mentioned earlier. Transportation and maintenance have requested an upgrade to the bus lot lighting. This may be something that, if we go to a shared facility for transportation, we still might want to consider doing that. As you'll see on a slide here in the future, we have a real issue with parking at the secondary campus, and it's not just for events. It is during the day with our transportation staff there, our custodial staff, our cafeteria staff, all of our teachers, instructional assistants. There is a big parking problem at the secondary campus. To include our students, I think they only put out about 75 driving passes a year for our students to take advantage of, and there's more of a demand for those parking spots than there is a supply of individual parking spaces. So it's something that we need to think about, but either way, I think this is a project that probably should be done because we could add that additional parking in the future if we eventually move away from, the bus line in the back of the middle school. Also provides a safety for our drivers who sometimes are, well, now they're arriving before daylight and leaving after dark very soon. Another request from transportation is upgrade to higher resolution cameras on their buses, often used by the drivers for training purposes and how to handle disruptions that occur during their routes, but also used by Mrs. Hurley, the transportation director, who often has to review when there is an incident on the bus, and of course our principals look at it quite often when they have student incidents on the buses as well. This is the parking lot expansion, which I talked about here. This is a picture of the JV practice field right by the stadium as you walk up into the stadium. It's the JV softball field. That is an expansive area there for a JV practice field. And I think you could take part of that place, or that area, to build additional parking spaces for the secondary campus. There's a couple other areas that I think could be options as well, including maybe behind the stadium. That's a practice field. We have a bunch of practice fields. That could be an area. Of course, the bus lot, if we go to a shared facility with the city, would be another option. Upgrading the elementary school playground equipment is, we made some repairs to it last year, but those repairs and the useful life of the equipment are coming to an end. And so it will be time for a refresh at MPE. And again, that's an area that's used quite a bit, not only by our students and staff, but also by the community. Requests came from the high school for installation of portable learning cottages. The portable learning cottage industry has changed quite a bit since when I was the principal at old MPE, and we had about 30 of them surrounded by around the school itself. This is a request from the high school so that they can increase some of their non-traditional pathway programs for students. Mr. Forrest is thinking that maybe we could move Cougars Connect there, maybe have adult ed in the evenings, offer classes at a variety of different times for students who maybe have family issues and can't be at the school at certain times during the day or work. And so offering non-traditional programs at varying hours throughout the day for students that could help them meet the goal of reaching high school graduation. Certainly anything like this could free up additional classroom space within the building. But we'd certainly need to have a conversation about where and how to do so.
I would also add, I like this idea, but going back to your slide, a couple slides before with the parking, right? If we're going to increase all these non-traditional educational programs, then we are going to need to, again, consider increasing the parking for all the traffic that's been coming into this.
Absolutely.
Would they utilize this for, the community, civic groups that tend to use the school, whether it's for scouts or whether it's like to kind of allow us to shut down the schools to keep traffic out of it during non-standard
Certainly could be a
hours?
possibility.
Is that a new one? I know you said they.
The newer one.
I would say that looks so different.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the compare and contrast of the two, Mr. Forgus is requesting an upgrade to the stadium lighting, to LED lighting. I guess there's some new systems out there that allow kind of that high resolution flashing that, you don't have to wait for the bulbs to come back on.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our local school divisions have gone to something similar in their football stadiums, so it's something that he has his eyes on down the road. Certainly not a pressing project by any means, but Cougar Stadium, excuse me, is sometimes you think of it as a football stadium, but it's not just a football stadium. It's used by, I was here Saturday coming back from a recruiting trip, and our marching band, the flags were in the stadium practice Saturday, but also used by soccer teams and other groups. Same with the football or the baseball and the softball fields. He'd like to replace those lightings with LED lightings as well. And then the one request that has come from the middle school is a high school is an additional auxiliary type of gym. This would be new construction. Storage is a real issue at the schools, but also practice space. If we're going to really get serious about a CTE program, this is a way to move the wrestling center out of the middle school into an auxiliary gym for practices and maybe even for matches. Create additional storage space, maybe even create additional classroom space, depending on the design and the drawings. but it might be something that we want to consider down the road. And again, I didn't put a timeline because I know this is, excuse me, this is really future thinking and something that will cost a lot.
I will say this one thing that's, everyone knows athletics is near and dear to me. And one of the things that I didn't realize until my kids were heavy into it is that there's such the practice facilities are so limited that some of the practices are going till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. But if kids can't catch late buses, they can't practice. So the more facilities we have to accommodate kids so that they can do it immediately after school and catch those late buses, the more participation we have in those extracurriculars, even beyond sports.
And Madam Chair, this completes my presentation.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, take the floor.
Yep, come on, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so a couple questions. The men's locker room upgrade, is that strictly just based off of capacity and the need for, we need more locker spaces? Or I know we're only doing the men's side, that's why I was just curious.
Correct.
All right,
Because the women's side is already fit that way.
perfect,
And
okay.
it's just number though, because what I noticed is all their gear gonna fit in the smaller, the half-size locker? That's, I mean, even though we're creating a higher number.
Right.
Is the gear gonna fit in there?
I would say yes, but I haven't been in there in years.
Because it looked like in that picture.
Like a helmet and
so-
shoulder pads are the gear you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
the most.
We're gonna have a great football team in a couple of years, just watch.
Wait.
So, one of the things that I just caught on the asphalt replacement slide was the statement about, and I know it kind of applies to we know about the roof in 2006, but we couldn't find evidence of the last time it was replaced. And this is more of a systematic, question. Have we established the procedures to now archive all of the information so that we have procedures in place for tracking expenses and knowing, 20 years from now, someone can look back and know what we bought and when we bought it?
Yeah, I think that's a work in progress. I think that those records exist. Sometimes they're more difficult to find than others, and processes and policies and procedures have changed over the years. So yes,
So
we're
we're on
working
that
on it.
path.
So I think I've done this similar presentation the last 5 years. So the previous year's goals or projects that were completed has always been a part of that. So I think, yes, it's just putting that all in one place for whoever the next person is that does this when I
Hopefully,
leave.
we will not all be here the next time the asphalt needs to be replaced.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not here with this mortal coil.
Right, in here, in this chair.
It's okay.
So related to the HVAC systems at the elementary campus, since we're going to individual ones within units, I just was curious about, just because now I'm hypersensitive to moisture, like, all of those technically will have condensation, all of those will have drains, like, is Mr. Simpson's crew gonna be servicing all of these units themselves? Is it through a PM contract? Is it?
So they do the preventative maintenance with the changing of the filters and all of that. What we need to put into place is a more robust cleaning piece, especially in the high reach areas. But yes, they
Just
do.
remember, I remember, was it a couple Christmases ago,
Yeah.
the Cougar?
The drain.
Yeah, drain.
Well,
So I
yeah.
just keep thinking
Christmas
of
Day.
this drain of a third floor air conditioning unit getting blocked and just condensing down.
Correct.
So, the bus expenditures, I saw that this year was 250, but then we went 325 for every other year.
It's a guesstimate with not only buses, but also the need that will arise for vans at times.
Gotcha.
So that's just an extra bit of money that's put in there.
Okay. I just wasn't sure with lead times, the way they're going, does it make more sense to hedge to plan for it next year as opposed to a couple years from now? But again, like you said, this is a fluid document.
Fluid document.
It will be changing. All right. That is it. Thank you.
Sure.
I had a quick question about the MPES playground equipment for 50,000. Does that cover just those two
It would be a,
Pieces of equipment, or what is the, 50K just seems low to me for playground equipment and installation and the surrounding areas.
it could be. It may need to be adjusted.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head how much we spent at Cougar
Okay.
when we did that for the kindergarten playground
Yeah.
a couple years ago. It seemed like to me it was like 15, 17,000, but I could be wrong.
Okay, okay.
I have one more, and this is just related to the parking lot question. I see every time I go to other high schools, all of the seniors have painted their parking spaces. I was just curious with a student present, how they felt about that, because I love going to schools and seeing that. I love seeing how creative the kids are with it. I love the fact that, they pay a certain amount, obviously, to do it, but I've always wondered why we didn't do that, so I was just curious if everything got resurfaced and looked wonderful, would we be
I know.
open to that concept?
A lot of times, schools use that as a fundraiser.
Right.
So the student pays a fee of, I think at my children's high school, it's $150
Right.
to paint their own parking spot.
Wow.
Stand out in the heat.
So it sometimes becomes a have and have not thing. I don't know, I can't speak for Mr. Forrest and the high school staff as to how they feel about that, but it's always something that can be considered.
How would the one student that's in the room feel about it?
I know that is something my classmates have definitely talked about. Because the juniors don't really have parking spaces, because seniors get first dibs. We've talked about implementing that the following year, so I guess we need to talk to Mr. Forrest about that to see if we can do that probably around February, March. That way we have time to get that plan out.
Planting a seed, he brought up a good point about the have versus have-nots, about, if there's any thought that could be given to addressing that in your planning, just putting it out there.
I had a question about the playground, and I know you mentioned the fencing and how like the the gate has already had some damage. And I don't really know if there's an answer, but I know it's used by the students and the community, right? And so one could argue that the community is also responsible for the damages that are being done. Is there something to do about that, or somehow maybe the city could help with that? Because it sounds like we're incurring the cost as the school system, and we're not the only ones using it, so.
Yeah,
a common theme.
Okay,
It's
that's
the,
okay.
it's the gate that goes into the community, back by the woods. I mean, it's a long distance from the playground itself. I don't even know if cameras could pick up,
Yeah.
That boost, that cellular boost maybe.
But even the playground equipment itself, right? Like, I walk a lot and I see a lot of kids playing on this to your point, after hours. And so I feel like it's approaching the end of its life quicker than maybe it would be if it wasn't being used as heavily by the community. And I don't want to deter the community from using it because,
No, absolutely not.
No, but it's a valid
Well,
point.
sun and snow and weather probably takes a bigger hit than kids playing on it.
Well, I think where the issue becomes is older kids hanging out.
Yeah.
And making decisions they maybe shouldn't make.
And then I just had one more comment. I just appreciated that a lot of these improvements that we're looking to do, I know they're a big cost, but I saw there's a common theme of cost savings will be long-term. So I just appreciate all the research that went into that. So
And I
thank
tried
you.
to span it out so it's close to the same dollar amounts every year as opposed to big spikes one year to the next.
I appreciate that.
Kind of piggybacking on the playground theme, somebody in the community had reached out to me about the possibility of, I think it's commonly known that I've been interested in a long time to see a more expansive kind of commitment to people with disabilities in terms of planning our playground and playground equipment, whether it's on the city side or on the park or on the school side. That said, if we do take the approach that the equipment at the elementary campus is common, maybe there's some, or shared, or just part of the community. Maybe there could be some, I know $50,000 is a placeholder, but maybe we could work with the city staff or even some grants to expand the purpose and the accessibility. I'm thinking there's Clementjohn as sort of like the dream, but then there's also Round, which had a very wide cross-section of equipment for people with disabilities and of varying sizes that could come and benefit from that sort of equipment. So if that could be part of the planning, and certainly that would be something I would be willing to take an active interest in when that comes down the road, and active work in it too.
Okay.
So,
See if we can develop a partnership there.
yeah.
Yep.
I feel like there would be more grants for something like that to be more inclusive, like
Yeah.
more available ones. And especially if we partner with the city, I think they might be able to find more grants as well. I think that's a great idea.
All right. Any more questions or comments?
So I guess there will be a public hearing in November with the CIP.
Fantastic. And then December it would be on our agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further
Thank you.
questions. I'm
Thank
gonna move-
you.
Thank you so much. Upcoming meetings, our next regular school board meeting is here, Monday, November 14th at 6:59 PM. And then, of course, we have the VSBA Annual Convention for the first time in person for us in several years in Williamsburg, November 16th through 18th. Board member comments. Does anyone want to start?
We'll be seeing a lot of each other that week.
Yes, we will. A lot.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Just, it's homecoming weekend, or week for the high school, so please help celebrate, show up to the events that the school's sponsoring. Just
Okay. Is there a signature one if students want to come back?
any,
Is there a signatures, if, say, last year's seniors wanted to come back, is there, I know there was no football team.
Yeah. Our homecoming volleyball game is going to be on Thursday, the 20th, right?
Okay.
20th. And the theme is black and gold, so anybody you know that went to the high school, tell them to come out. Tickets are $7. They're being purchased online, and we should have the link to that up. But we have the volleyball game, and then on Friday, we will be doing something called the Cougar Palooza, which is basically everything that happens during halftime in our football games, but it is going to be its own event on the football field. It starts at 6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
They are announcing homecoming court. The marching band and color guard are gonna perform. Someone singing the national anthem, don't know who yet, but it's either gonna be chamber singers or a student, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very excited. And then the dance, of course, is going to be on Saturday from 7 to 10 o'clock. And I believe there's also a volleyball game tomorrow, so if you want to come out, you can come out to that as well. I don't think we have a theme for that, but it's okay. Just show up. We're always glad to see support in the stands for our volleyball team, which is pretty good, by the way. I have a lot of classmates on the volleyball team.
I think Mr.
I know one.
Alexander, one,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, they're playing right now in Brentsville. Go Cougars.
All right. So comments, again, welcome, Miles. We are so happy to have you. Also, I think I talked to everyone. I didn't catch up with you because my conversation never got there. So on Saturday morning in Manassas Park Middle School, I will be co-hosting with State Senator Jeremy McPike a teacher town hall. Senator McPike is obviously our local representative, but he is also has some responsibility over the JLARC agenda this session. And, it's been a trying couple of years for teachers. And rather than, I wanted to create an opportunity for people to talk about common issues that they have, teachers to talk about common issues that they're having with education, and for somebody like Senator McPike to hear and see what he could do as part of his legislative agenda to help improve retention and recruitment in this profession. I know personally so many people who have left over the past several years, changed divisions or left teaching entirely, and it's not sustainable the way it is, and we have to, instead of wringing our hands or we have to focus on being advocates for ourselves and our students and getting past this and moving forward. And it's really going to take a lot of great ideas. So I welcome anyone watching, anyone who, has a professional role in education to come on out to the event. It's a public event. We are using the World Cafe model that was modeled for me back when we did Balanced Calendar. Slightly different, but I think it's going to work out very, very well. It starts at 9 a.m. at the middle school. Also, I just wanted to give a special shout out. We don't take enough time to recognize each other up here, but I wanted to thank Mr. Alexander for just being a fantastic vice chair. I've told him that privately, but sometimes it's helpful to hear it in public too. You are a fantastic support to me. We've come a long way, and I think I can't imagine doing this with anyone else. So I thank you so much for your support and feeling advocacy for this community and this board. So thank you for that. All right, seeing no further business in front of us, I will call us adjourned.